Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you, right out of the gate, I've been dreading this one a little bit.
Oh, why is that? Usually, you're the one eager to tear into a new stack of research.
Well, usually we sit here and I feel like I'm learning something that makes me sharper, you know? We do a deep dive on history or tech, and I walk away feeling like I've added a tool to the mental toolbox.
I see what you mean.
But today, looking at the stack of research you've brought on David McRaney's, You Are Not So Smart, I feel like the toolbox is being emptied out. Or maybe turned upside down and shaken violently.
That is a very, very fair assessment. It's less about adding new tools and more about realizing the tools you've been using your whole life, your logic, your memory, your gut instincts, are actually pretty rusty.
Rusty is one word for it.
And maybe a little crooked.
Crooked is putting it mildly. The premise of this book seems to be that we are fundamentally delusional, like on a core level.
Delusional, irrational, and this is the key part, totally unaware of it. McRaney's central thesis is that we walk around with this, what he calls a user illusion.
The user routine.
We think we are these rational captains of our own ships, objectively looking at the horizon and steering accordingly. But the research suggests we're actually just passengers.
Just along for the ride.
The ship is on autopilot, and we're just standing on the deck after the fact, taking credit for wherever the wind blows us.
Which is a terrifying thought. It really is. But before we get into the full-blown existential crisis of it all, I want to jump straight into the deep end.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Because I read the intro to the material, and there was a test. A logic puzzle.
Ah, the Wesson selection task.
Yeah.
It's a classic for a reason.
Right. And I consider myself a logical guy. I do the crossword, I pay my taxes, I make pros and cons lists, and I got this test completely and utterly wrong.
You are in very, very good company. Almost everyone does. Even people with, PhDs in mathematics often trip up on this one.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. I want to do this live for the listener. I want you to feel the same frustration I did. So if you're listening, don't zone out. I'm going to describe a scenario, and I want you to genuinely try to solve it.
Okay, let's set the stage. Imagine I place 4 cards on a table in front of you.
4 cards. Got it.
The rule for these cards is very simple. If a card has an even number on one side, then it must be red on the opposite side.
Okay, nice and simple. If even, then red. That's the law of this little 4-card universe.
Now look at the cards. Card 1 shows the number 3.
Okay, 3.
Card 2 shows the number 8.
8.
Card 3 is red.
A red card.
And card 4 is brown.
So the spread is 3, 8, red, brown.
The question is, which card or cards must you flip over to prove that the rule is true? You can't flip more than you need to. Just the absolute essentials to prove if even, then red.
Okay, listener, take a second. Pause if you need to. 3, 8, red, brown. When I did this, my brain immediately lit up. It felt so easy. I said, okay, surely I need to check the 8. Because it's an even number, so I have to make sure it's red on the back. That's a must.
Correct. You absolutely have to check the 8. If you flip the 8 and it's, say, brown, the rule is instantly broken. So that is step 1. No question.
And then my brain just kept going down that same path. I said, and obviously, I need to check the red card to make sure there's an even number on the back. So my answer was the 8 and the red card.
And that is the trap. That is the answer given by the vast majority of people, including university students, professors, pretty much everyone. And it is wrong.
It drives me crazy that it's wrong. Walk us through this slowly. Why is flipping the red card the wrong move?
Look at the rule again very carefully. If a card have an even number on one side, then it must be red on the opposite side.
Okay. If even, then red.
It does not say if red, then even.
Ah.
The rule is a one-way street. An odd number, like a 3 or a 7, could also be red. The rule doesn't forbid that. It's totally allowed.
Right. It says nothing about odd numbers.
So if you flip the red card and see the 3 on the back, have you broken the rule? Have you proven it?
No, I guess not.
You've learned nothing. The red card gives you 0 useful information.
Yeah.
It can't prove the rule, and it can't disprove it. It's a total waste of a flip.
Okay, I see that now. It's a one-way street, and I was trying to drive both ways. So if I don't flip the red card, what else is there? I don't need to flip the 3.
No, definitely not. Because the rule is only about even numbers.
Yeah.
The 3 is completely irrelevant.
So what's left? Just the brown card? That seems so random.
Exactly. You must flip the brown card.
But why? What could that possibly tell me?
Because you have to check if there is an 8 hiding on the other side.
Oh, wow.
If you flip that brown card and you see an even number, the rule is instantly destroyed. If even, then red. If you find a card that is even in brown, the rule is proven false.
So the only correct answer is the 8 and the brown card.
That's it. And the reason this is so hard, the reason less than 10% of people get this right, is because of something called confirmation bias.
I've heard of that.
When we want to test a theory, our deep-seated instinct is to look for things that confirm it. You looked for the red card because you wanted to see the rule working. You wanted to find an even number.
I was looking for the hit. I wanted to see the match, the thing that proved me right.
Exactly. But pure cold logic demands that you look for the falsification. You have to actively search for the one thing that would prove you wrong. And humans are naturally terrible at that. We hate looking for evidence that we're wrong about something.
But here is the part of the book that really surprised me. We aren't just universally suited at this. Because if you just change the setup of the puzzle, suddenly we're all geniuses.
Yes, this is the amazing part. It's like a hidden cheater detection module in the brain just wakes up. If you strip away the abstract numbers and colors and replace them with a social scenario, our brains are brilliant at it.
To give us the social version.
Imagine you're a bouncer at a bar.
Yeah.
The rule is, if you are drinking alcohol, you must be over 21.
Okay, standard bar rules.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And you see 4 people at a table. Person 1 is drinking a soda. Person 2 is drinking a beer. Person 3 looks about 25 years old. And person 4 is clearly a teenager, maybe 16 years old.
That's instant. It's not even a puzzle.
Right. What do?
I need to check the ID of the person drinking beer.
To make sure they aren't underage.
And I need to check what the 16-year-old is drinking.
To make sure it isn't beer.
I don't care about the soda drinker, and I couldn't care less about the 25-year-old. They're irrelevant.
Precisely. And logic-wise, it is the exact same puzzle. The beer is the thing that must have a certain property on the other side. The 16-year-old is the brown card, the thing that must not have a certain property on the other side.
But I solved it in a split second. We all did.
Because you're not looking for truth anymore. You're not trying to confirm a rule.
I'm looking for a rule breaker. A cheater.
You are looking for a cheater. We evolved in small social groups. Our brains aren't built to be abstract logic processors. They are built for social survival. We are obsessed with status, hierarchy, fairness, and making sure nobody's getting away with something they shouldn't.
That is the mission statement of this entire deep dive, isn't it? We aren't here to just say humans are dumb. We're here to look at the machinery, to pop the hood and see that the engine is built for a completely different terrain than the one we're driving on today.
Precisely. We are running Stone Age software in a Silicon Age world. And today, we're going to break that down into 3 main categories. We're going to look at cognitive biases, which are like, the kinks in our mental wiring.
Okay.
Then we're going to look at heuristics, which are the mental shortcuts we take that are usually right, but sometimes go disastrously wrong.
Right.
And finally, we're going to look at logical fallacies, which is where our reasoning just completely falls off a cliff.
So let's start with the wiring. Section 1, the storyteller in your head. The source material uses this word that was new to me. Confabulation. Now, in my head, confabulation is just a very fancy word for lying. But it's not, is it?
No, and that distinction is absolutely crucial. Lying is a conscious act of deception. I know the truth is X, but I tell you Y because I want to trick you.
Right. There's intent.
Confabulation is when I tell you Y, and I genuinely believe it is the truth, but I actually have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It is the brain filling in the gaps of reality with a story without telling the conscious you that it's making it all up.
The most disturbing examples of this have to be the split brain experiments. These feel like something out of science fiction.
They really do. These were studies done in the mid-20th century on patients who had incredibly severe epilepsy. To cure them, surgeons had to sever the corpus callosum.
That's the main bundle of nerves connecting the 2 halves of the brain.
Exactly. So the left hemisphere of the brain literally couldn't talk to the right hemisphere. They were operating independently.
And you have to remember the geography here, right? The left hemisphere usually controls speech and language. It's the talker.
Right, it's the narrator. The right hemisphere is mostly silent, but it processes a lot of visual information, specifically from the left eye.
So they could set up an experiment where they show something just to the silent right brain?
And then ask the talking left brain to explain what's going on.
It's like they're interviewing 2 different people who happen to be in the same body.
It is. One famous setup involves showing a picture of a snowy winter landscape to the patient's left eye. So only the silent right brain sees it.
Okay. Right brain sees snow.
At the exact same time, they showed a picture of a chicken claw to the right eye. So the speaking left brain sees it.
So left brain sees a chicken claw, right brain sees snow. They have no idea what the other one saw.
None at all. Then, they asked the patient to point to a matching image from a big pile of picture cards.
Yeah.
The patient's left hand, which is controlled by the snow-seeing right brain, pointed to a picture of a shovel.
Which makes perfect sense. You shovel snow, a
Yeah.
logical connection.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. The researcher then asked the patient, why did you point to the shovel? Now remember, the part of the brain that hears the question and formulates the answer, the left hemisphere, never saw the snow. It only saw a chicken claw.
So a rational, logical person would say, I have no idea why my hand just did that. My hand seems to be acting on its own.
You would think. But the human brain abhors a vacuum. It absolutely cannot tolerate, I don't know, without missing a beat, without any hesitation. The patient said, oh, that's easy. The chicken claw goes with the chicken, and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop.
Wow, just wow.
He didn't hesitate. He didn't feel confused or embarrassed. His left brain saw his own hand pointing to a shovel. It knew it had seen a chicken claw, and it instantly wove a coherent narrative to connect them, and he believed it 100%.
You confabulated a reason. He invented a story to make his own actions make sense to himself.
He created a fiction to explain his own behavior, and it felt like a memory. McRaney calls this the interpreter module. It's like a little storyteller that lives in our left hemisphere. We are constantly doing things driven by deep, unconscious impulses, hunger, hormones, social priming. And then our conscious mind steps in a split second later and says, oh yeah, I meant to do that because of X, Y, and Z.
It's like we are the press secretary for a crazy, impulsive dictator. The dictator does something wild and unpredictable, and we have to run out to the podium and spin a rational, strategic story about why it was actually a brilliant move all along.
That is a perfect analogy. We're the press secretary for the unconscious mind, and we're always on duty.
There was another example in the book that I think really drives this home, the walk experiment.
Yes, very similar setup. The researchers flashed the single word walk to the patient's right brain. Just that one command.
So the silent half of the brain gets the message.
Right. And the patient stood up and started walking towards the door to leave the room. When the researcher asked him, where are you going? The left brain, the talker, didn't say, I don't know, or I just saw a command. It said, I'm going to go get a Coke from the machine down the hall.
It invented a thirst to explain the act of walking. It confabulated a motivation.
Exactly. We are, as McRaney puts it, based on a true story, not a documentary. Our inner monologue is a narrative we create, not a report we read.
This leads right into the next big idea, the introspection illusion, because we all think that if we just look deep inside ourselves, we can find the truth. Why do I love this painting? Why am I in love with this person? We think the answer is just sitting in there waiting for us.
But the research suggests that a lot of the time the answer is access denied. And when we force it, when we try to put words to it, we actually mess things up.
Right, the poster study.
The classic study by Tim Wilson. He brought a bunch of college students into a room and showed them a series of posters. Some were what you'd call high art Monet, Van Gogh, complex impressionistic stuff.
The kind of thing you'd see in a museum.
Exactly. And the others were those cheesy motivational posters, the ones, a kitten hanging from a clothesline that says, hang in there.
The absolute classics of the college dorm room wall.
The very same.
Yeah.
He split the students into two groups. Group A was told, just pick a poster to take home, whichever one you like. That's it.
Okay, pure gut instinct.
Group B was told, pick a poster, but before you do, you have to write down a brief essay explaining why you like the one you picked.
So Group B is forced to introspect. They have to use logic and language to justify their feelings.
They have to translate their emotions into words. And what happened? Group A, the gut instinct group, overwhelmingly chose the art posters, the Monets, the Van Goghs.
Okay.
Group B, the essay writers, overwhelmingly chose the kitten posters.
Get out. What?
Because it is very, very easy to write an essay about why a kitten is cute. The kitten is funny. The slogan is uplifting. It makes me smile. It's easily verbalizable.
Right.
It is very, very hard to write an essay about why a Van Gogh painting moves you. The feeling is deep, it's abstract, it's emotional. And because they couldn't find the words for the art, they essentially assumed they didn't really like it as much. They gravitated toward the thing they could easily explain.
They dumbed down their own taste to match their available vocabulary.
Perfectly put. But the real tragedy is what happened later. The researchers called all the students back a few months later. The people from Group A with the Monet posters.
Yeah.
Still happy. They loved their posters, had them framed on their walls.
And the kitten people.
The people from Group B with the kittens, they hated them. They were like, why is this garbage on my wall? I can't stand it.
So by trying to be rational, by trying to explain their feelings, they actually made a worse, less satisfying decision for themselves in the long run.
This is the introspection illusion in a nutshell. We think analyzing our feelings clarifies them, but often it just distorts them. We grab onto the most plausible or easy-to-say reason rather than the true underlying one.
There was another study mentioned about jam, right? It wasn't just posters.
Yes, the jam study.
Right.
Same exact principle. They had people taste and rank different brands of strawberry jam. One group just tasted and ranked. Their rankings were almost identical to professional food critics from Consumer Reports.
So our gut taste is actually pretty good.
Very good. But the other group was asked to fill out a detailed form rating the spreadability, the texture, the color, the aroma. They had to break it down into parts.
They introspected.
And their rankings went all over the place. They ended up picking the worst jams as their favorites. By breaking the experience down into a checklist, they lost the holistic sense of, this just tastes good.
This is why asking your partner, why do you love me, is actually a very dangerous question.
It really can be. Because if they can't immediately come up with a bulleted list of your best qualities, they might start thinking, wait, maybe I don't. When in reality, the love is just operating on that deeper, nonverbal Van Gogh level.
Okay, so we've established that there's a storyteller in our head that's constantly lying to us about why we do things. But it gets worse, because the things we are doing are often being manipulated by the environment in ways we don't even see. Let's talk about priming.
Priming is the puppet master. It's the idea that a stimulus you encounter now, a word, a smell, a temperature, an object, can affect how you behave minutes or even hours later, completely outside your conscious awareness. It all relies on what psychologists call the adaptive unconscious.
That's the part of the brain that's on autopilot, right? Handling breathing, driving a car.
All the heavy lifting, so your conscious mind can focus. But it's also very, very open to suggestion.
The study that just blew my mind here was the dirty conscience study. It sounds like something from a religious text, but it's pure hard psychology.
It's an incredible study from researchers Zong and Liljenquist.
Yeah.
They asked participants to recall a time they did something unethical, a time they preyed a friend, stole something, cheated on a test. They really wanted them to sit in that feeling of guilt.
Okay, so everyone is feeling grimy and shameful. Not a fun starting point.
Not at all. Then, under the guise of a completely different activity, half the group was given an antiseptic wipe and told to clean their hands. The other half was not.
So clean hands versus dirty hands, literally.
Literally. Then, the researchers presented a final scenario. They said, a desperate graduate student needs help with a project. It's unpaid, it's boring, and it will take hours of your time. Will you help?
Okay.
The people who didn't wash their hands, the ones still sitting in their guilt, 74% of them said yes, they would help.
Wow, that's a lot.
They were feeling the weight of their guilt. And helping was a way to atone, to balance the moral scales. They needed to do a good deed to feel better about themselves.
That makes sense. So what about the hand washers?
The people who did wash their hands, only 41% helped.
They washed away the guilt, literally, with a wipe.
To the deep adaptive unconscious, the concepts of physical cleanliness and moral cleanliness are deeply intertwined. By physically wiping their hands, they subconsciously felt they had absolved themselves of the sin. They didn't feel the same urgent need to be a good person anymore because they already felt clean.
That is wild. We use these metaphors all the time. I wash my hands of this whole affair. Coming clean, dirty money. We think they are just poetry. But you're saying the brain treats them as literal instructions.
The brain is a giant association machine. It bundles concepts together through language and experience, and it works with objects too.
The briefcase study.
The briefcase study with the ultimatum game. This is a simple game where you're given, say, $10 to split with a partner. You make an offer. If they accept your offer, you both keep the money. But if they reject it because they think it's unfair, nobody gets anything.
So logically, you should be fair, or the other person will spite reject you just to punish you.
Right. It's a test of fairness versus greed. In this study, they put people in two different rooms. Room A had neutral objects lying around. A backpack, a cardboard box, just random stuff.
Okay.
Room B had business objects. A nice leather briefcase, a fancy fountain pen, a portfolio.
And nobody said anything about the objects. They were just part of the decor.
Just background noise. In the neutral room with the backpack, 100% of the participants split the money evenly. 50-50, a perfectly fair offer.
Every single one.
Every single one. In the briefcase room, only 50% split it evenly. The other half tried to keep more for themselves, making greedy, unfair offers.
The briefcase made them greedy, just its presence.
The briefcase primed the concepts of business, competition, negotiation, shark eat shark. And the participants acted on that script without realizing it. And again, if you ask them afterwards, hey, did that leather briefcase make you act like a jerk?
Yeah.
They would say, what briefcase? I don't remember a briefcase. No, I just thought he didn't deserve half the money for doing nothing.
Confabulation again. The press secretary is back at the podium.
Always. We're constantly being nudged by these subtle cues. There's the famous Florida Effect study by John Bargh. He had college students unscramble sentences. One group unscrambled sentences with words related to the elderly. Florida, bingo, gray, wrinkled, retired. The other group had neutral words. When the students left the experiment, the researchers secretly timed how long it took them to walk down the hallway to the elevator.
Let me guess. The Florida group walked slower.
Significantly slower. Just thinking about the concept of old age, for a few minutes primed their motor cortex to slow down. They physically embodied the idea they had just been exposed to.
Makes me want to completely redecorate my office. If I put a picture of a cheetah on the wall, will I work faster?
Honestly? Maybe. But if you put a picture of a cozy bed up, you might find yourself yawning a lot more. We are incredibly sensitive instruments, and we like to think we are these isolated, rational minds, but we are porous. We absorb everything from our environment.
So we are liars and we are puppets. This is going well. Let's move to section 3. Creating order from chaos. Because if there is one thing the human brain hates, it's randomness. We absolutely refuse to accept that things just happen.
We are pattern-seeking missiles. It's one of our greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses. We look at the clouds and see faces. We look at the stars and see bears and hunters. And we look at random data and see trends and connections that simply aren't there. This brings us to the Texas sharpshooter fallacy.
I love the visual of this one. It's so clear.
It's a great metaphor. Imagine a cowboy who wants everyone to think he's a sharpshooter. He takes his gun and fires 100 bullets at the side of a barn, just completely at random. The barn is riddled with holes, scattered everywhere.
Okay.
Then he walks up to the barn, finds the spot where, just by pure chance, 3 or 4 bullets happen to hit close together. He then takes out some paint and draws a big red bullseye around that cluster. Then he brings his friends over and says, "Look at my amazing aim."
He draws the target after he shoots the bullets.
Exactly. And we do this with reality every single day. We ignore the thousands of random misses in our lives and focus exclusively on the clusters of coincidence, and then we assign them deep meaning.
The classic example McRaney cites is the Lincoln-Kennedy list. You've seen this floating around the internet for years, right?
Oh, yeah. The spooky list of similarities. It's designed to give you chills.
Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946, 100 years apart.
Lincoln became president in 1860, Kennedy in 1960, 100 years apart.
Oh, both were shot on a Friday. Both were shot in the head. Both were succeeded by a Southern Democrat named Johnson.
Andrew Johnson and Lyndon B. Johnson, right? When you read that list, your brain just goes, whoa, that cannot be a coincidence. There is a cosmic pattern here. This is destiny.
It feels like proof of something mysterious.
But you are being the Texas sharpshooter. You are drawing a bullseye around the handful of hits. You are ignoring the infinite number of misses. Lincoln was born in 1809, Kennedy in 1917. No pattern. Lincoln had a beard, Kennedy was clean-shaven. Lincoln died in a theater, Kennedy died in a car. Kennedy had a fancy Harvard education. Lincoln was almost entirely self-taught. I could list a million differences, but the brain just glazes over the differences. It treats them as noise, and it highlights the similarities and calls it a signal.
This is how psychics work, isn't it? It's the exact same trick.
100%. This is the art of cold reading. A psychic stands on stage and says, I'm sensing a connection to an M name. Is there a Mary, a Michael, a Margaret, a Martin? They're firing bullets at the barn. Most of the audience stays silent. Those are the misses. We ignore them.
You don't even register them.
But one guy in the back stands up and says, my grandmother was named Margaret. Boom. The psychic paints the bullseye. Yes, Margaret is here with us. She's coming through so strongly. And everyone in the audience gasps. They completely forget the 50 other names that didn't land. They only remember the hit.
We filter out the failures. And this connects to another one, the availability heuristic, doesn't it? Because we also filter what we remember based on how exciting or scary it is.
Yes. The availability heuristic is a simple but powerful mental shortcut. It basically says, if I can easily remember an example of something happening, that thing must be very common. And what is easy to remember? Vivid, scary, dramatic, emotional stories.
Shark attacks.
Shark attacks are the classic example. We all have this ingrained image of sharks as these man-eating machines that are constantly patrolling the beaches, just waiting to strike.
Because every single time a shark bites someone anywhere in the world, it is global news. It's on TV. It's on the internet. It is vivid. It is highly available to your memory.
But statistically, you're more likely to be killed by a vending machine falling on you than by a shark. You're more likely to be killed by a falling coconut.
But nobody makes a horror movie called Vending Machine or Coconut.
Chuckles. Exactly. Jaws would have been a lot less scary if it was just a snack machine, slowly tipping over for 2 hours. But because death by shark is so available in our minds, we develop a disproportionate fear of the ocean. And because death by vending machine isn't available, we'll shake the machine when our Snickers gets stuck, foolishly putting our lives at risk.
This distorts our entire worldview then. We think crime is rising because we see it on the news every night. Even when the actual statistics show crime is falling, we think plane crashes are common, even though driving to the airport is 1,000 times more dangerous.
It also explains the "my grandpa smoked" argument. You show someone mountains of data. Smoking kills millions of people a year, and they'll say, well, my grandpa smoked 3 packs a day and lived to be 90.
Right.
That one single anecdote is vivid. It's a person they knew, a story they can picture. It is available. The statistic about millions of people is just abstract math. And the brain trusts the available story over the cold data almost every time. So we walk around terrified of the wrong things and wrongly confident about the right things, all because of what's most available to our recall.
Okay, so we can't trust our own logic, and we can't trust our own memories. Let's look at how we relate to other people. Section 4, the social delusions. Because not only do we lie to ourselves, but we are also deeply, deeply obsessed with what everyone else is thinking about us. Enter the spotlight effect.
The spotlight effect is that persistent, nagging feeling that you are walking around on a stage with a giant follow spot on you at all times. You think everyone is noticing your bad hair day? Everyone noticed you stumbled over that word in the big meeting? Everyone is judging a tiny stain on your shirt.
I feel this constantly. If I wear a shirt I'm not sure about, I feel like every person I pass on the street is staring at it.
We all feel it. Thomas Gilovich did the definitive study on this at Cornell, and he used the ultimate weapon of social embarrassment, a Barry Manilow t-shirt.
Poor Barry. He gets a bad rap in these studies.
He does. Gilovich forced unsuspecting students to wear a bright yellow t-shirt with a huge goofy face of Barry Manilow on it. Then he sent them into a classroom where other students were already sitting and filling out forms. After a minute, he took them out.
They must have felt like a walking neon sign. Pure humiliation.
He asked the t-shirt wearers, okay, how many people in that room noticed your shirt? They estimated about 50%. They thought half the room was looking at them, staring and judging them.
And the reality?
Less than 25%. Most people in the room didn't even see them, let alone register the shirt. They were focused on their own forms, their own thoughts.
That's actually really comforting.
It is. And here is the twist. This applies to looking cool, too. You buy that expensive watch, you drive that fancy car, you wear those designer clothes, you think, everyone is admiring me. Everyone is so impressed. They aren't.
They're not paying attention.
They are too busy worrying about their own Barry Manilow t-shirt. They're worried you're judging their shoes.
We are the main character in our own movie, and we completely forget that we are just blurry extras in the background of everyone else's movie.
Exactly. It's actually quite liberating once you accept it.
Yeah.
You can just relax. Nobody is watching you that closely.
But while we think everyone is watching us, we also have this contradictory belief that everyone else is a sucker. This is the third-person effect.
This is the ego talking again, loud and clear. The third-person effect is the belief that mass media, propaganda, and advertising work wonders on other people. The anonymous third person, but not on me.
I don't buy Coke because of the commercials with the polar bears. I buy it because I genuinely like the taste.
Yeah.
But my neighbor, oh, he's a sheep. He only buys it because of the marketing.
That's it, exactly. Or, I'm not influenced by those negative political ads. I look at the issues and the policies, but those people on the other side, they're completely brainwashed by the media.
It's always someone else who's the fool.
Research consistently shows that the vast majority of people believe they are less susceptible to persuasion than the majority of people. And mathematically, that is impossible. We can't all be better than average at resisting influence.
It's dangerous, isn't it? Because if you think you're immune, you let your guard down. You don't build up your defenses.
Precisely. If you think advertising doesn't work on you, you don't critically analyze the ads you see. You just let them wash over you. The person who proudly says, I can't be conned, is the easiest mark in the world for a con artist.
Now, we have to talk about the darker side of social behavior, the really troubling stuff. The bystander effect. We've all heard the story of Kitty Genovese at some point.
It's a tragedy that became a cornerstone of social psychology. In 1964, a woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked and murdered over a prolonged period in Queens, New York. The original New York Times reporting claimed that 38 of her neighbors watched from their apartment windows, heard her screams for help, and did absolutely nothing. Nobody even called the police.
An indictment of urban apathy, right?
That was the narrative. Now, McRaney is quick to point out, and modern historians agree, that the original story was greatly exaggerated. It wasn't quite 38 silent witnesses. Some people did call the police. But the psychological principle they discovered because of this event is very, very real.
And that principle is, the more people who are present at an emergency, the less likely it is that any one of them will help.
Correct. It is called diffusion of responsibility. It's simple math. If you are the only person who witnesses a car accident, you feel 100% of the pressure to act. If I don't call 911, nobody will, and that person could die.
The entire burden is on you.
But if there are 50 people standing on the sidewalk watching the same accident, you think, someone else probably called already. A doctor is probably in this crowd. I don't want to get in the way or make things worse. You only own 150th the responsibility.
So it's not necessarily that people are cruel or apathetic. It's that they are uncertain and assume someone else is more qualified or has already acted.
And we look to the herd for cues on how to behave. This is called pluralistic ignorance. You see smoke coming from under a door in an office building. Your first instinct is to panic. But you look around. Nobody else is running. Everyone is just looking around confused. So you think, well, if nobody else is panicking, it must not be a real fire. I don't want to be the one who overreacts. Meanwhile, everyone else in the room is looking at you and thinking the exact same thing.
It's a feedback loop of inaction that can be deadly.
It is.
Okay, so practical advice time. This is important. If I'm having a heart attack in a crowded street, what do I do? Because just screaming help might trigger the bystander effect and everyone will just stare.
Do not just scream into the void. That is the worst thing you can do. You need to break the spell of diffusion. You point at one specific person, you make eye contact. You say, you, in the red jacket. My name is John. I think I'm having a heart attack. Call an ambulance. Right now.
You assign the responsibility directly to one person.
You put the burden 100% on them. You turn them from a passive bystander into an active rescuer. Studies show this snaps people out of the trance instantly. They have a job to do.
That is a life-saving tip. I'm going to remember that. Okay, let's get personal again. Let's talk about why I am my own worst enemy. Section 5. The saboteur. Why do I procrastinate? Why do I eat the cake when I'm on a diet? I know I shouldn't. I know I'll regret it 5 minutes later. But I do it anyway.
This is the eternal war between present you and future you. We tend to think of ourselves as one continuous, consistent person over time. But neurologically, we are deeply disjointed.
They're two different people.
In a very real way. Present you is a toddler. It lives in the limbic system, the ancient emotional part of the brain. It wants dopamine, sugar, comfort, and entertainment, and it wants it right now. Future you is an abstract concept that lives in your prefrontal cortex. Future you wants to be thin, wealthy, respected, and have written a novel.
But present you has the car keys and the credit card and the fork.
Exactly. And present you does not care about future you at all. Future you isn't real yet. The cookie is very real.
There was a study on deadlines that illustrates this perfectly.
Yes, from Dan O'Reilly. A professor conducted an experiment with his 3 classes. Class A had strict, evenly spaced deadlines. Paper 1 due week 4, Paper 2 due week 8, Paper 3 due week 12, no extensions.
Old school.
Class B was told, you can set your own 3 deadlines. Just tell me now when you will turn them in, commit to it, and you have to stick to those dates.
Okay, some freedom.
And Class C was told, total freedom, I don't care when you turn the papers in, just get all 3 of them in by the very last day of the semester.
Okay, so if we are rational, self-aware adults, Class C should do the best. Total flexibility allows you to manage your own schedule perfectly around other life events.
That's what logic would say. But the results were the complete opposite. Class A, the one with the strict, forced deadlines imposed by the professor, got the best grades by a significant margin.
And the worst.
Class C, the one with total freedom, got the worst grades, by far. Because the students in Class C kept trusting future you. Every week they thought, I don't really feel like writing today, but future me will be so energetic and focused next week, I'll do it then. They kept passing the buck to this imaginary, perfect future self until the last week of the semester, when they had to write 3 massive papers in a caffeine-fueled panic, and the quality just tanked.
Whereas Class A had what the book calls pre-commitment.
The professor forced present you to do the work because he knew present you couldn't be trusted. McRaney argues that to succeed at any long-term goal, you have to treat your present self like the unreliable, impulsive toddler it is. You need pre-commitment strategies.
So don't just say, I won't eat cookies. You make a rule. I will not bring cookies into the house.
Exactly. Don't just say, I'll work on my novel. You use software that blocks the internet for 3 hours every morning. You have to create a structure that robs present you of the ability to make the bad choice.
And what happens when we try to fight present you? When we actually start the diet or quit smoking, we hit the extinction burst.
The extinction burst is so fascinating, and knowing about it is the only way to survive it. It comes from the science of conditioning. Imagine a pigeon in a Skinner box. It learns that if it pecks a little button, a pellet of food comes out. Peck, food, peck, food. Simple.
Okay.
Now imagine you turn off the food dispenser. The pigeon pecks the button, but no food comes out. Does the pigeon just shrug its little pigeon shoulders and walk away?
No. It probably pecks harder and faster.
It goes absolutely crazy. It pecks frantically. It attacks the button. It screeches. It throws a full-blown tantrum. That frantic, desperate increase in the behavior is the extinction burst.
Why does it do that?
The brain expects a reward. When the reward is withdrawn, the brain's first reaction isn't to give up. It's to think, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe if I do the behavior more intensely, the reward will come back.
So when I go on a diet and cut out sugar, my brain is the pigeon.
Your brain is the pigeon. For the first few days, you might be fine, running on willpower. But then you hit the burst. You don't just want a cookie. You want to eat the entire box. You want to drive to the store and buy a gallon of ice cream. You feel rage. You feel desperate. That is your brain pecking the button as hard as it can, screaming, "Where is my sugar?"
Most people take that as a sign of failure. They think, see, I guess I'm just too addicted. This is impossible. I can't do it.
But it's actually a sign of success. The burst happens right before the behavior dies out for good. It is the last desperate gasp of the old habit. If you know that the tantrum is coming, if you can say to yourself, oh, look, here it is. I'm in the extinction burst right now. You can ride it out. If you don't give in, the curve collapses. The pigeon eventually stops pecking. But you have to survive that final violent spike.
That is strangely comforting. The intense pain means the habit is dying.
Exactly. It's the darkness before the dawn.
Okay, let's move to section 6. Misjudging value and ability. Because not only are we bad at managing our time and habits, we are often spectacularly bad at knowing how good we are at things. We have to talk about Dunning-Kruger.
The Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's become a bit of an internet meme for just calling people stupid, but it's actually more subtle and interesting than that.
Right.
It states that unskilled people are often unable to recognize their own incompetence. And the reason is simple. The skills required to be good at a task are the exact same skills required to evaluate if you were good at that task.
Can you give me a clear example?
Grammar is a perfect one. If you are bad at grammar, if you don't know what a comma splice is or when to use whom versus who, you cannot look at your own writing and see the mistakes. To you, it looks perfect.
Yeah.
You need to already know the rules of grammar to be able to recognize that you are bad at grammar.
It's the American Idol problem. In the early seasons, you'd see those people who sing terribly, just painfully off key, and the judges would laugh, and the singer would be genuinely shocked and hurt. They aren't faking it. They really think they sound like Mariah Carey.
They lack the very skill auditory discrimination that would allow them to hear their own pitch issues. So in their own minds, they're nailing it. Ignorance begets confidence.
So the less you know, the more you think you know.
Precisely. If you know a little bit about a complex subject, you suddenly realize how vast and complicated it is. You realize how much you don't know. Your confidence plummets. But if you know nothing, the landscape looks simple, and you think you know everything.
So if you walk into a room and your first thought is, I am definitely the smartest person here, you are probably the #1 victim of Dunning-Kruger in that room.
That is a very good rule of thumb. And if you walk in thinking, man, there's so much I don't understand here, I better listen carefully, you are probably more competent than you think.
We also misjudge value constantly. This is the anchoring effect. This is just pure naked marketing.
Anchoring is why sales work. The brain has no internal value meter. We don't really know what a TV should cost, or a shirt, or a house. We only know what it costs compared to something else.
Okay.
So you walk into a high-end clothing store. The first thing you see is a leather jacket for $4,000. That is the anchor. Your brain latches onto that number. Then you see a tie for $100. Suddenly, $100 for a tie feels cheap. It feels like a bargain.
even though $100 for a tie is objectively a lot of money.
But if you had walked into that same store and the first thing you saw was a pair of socks for $10, that $100 tie would look outrageously expensive. The initial number you see sets the entire context for everything that follows.
Steve Jobs was a master of this, wasn't he?
The absolute master. When he first launched the iPad, he was on stage, and behind him on the giant screen was the price. $999.
Right.
He let it sit there. The audience audibly groaned. That's so expensive. He anchored them impossibly high. Then he said something like, that's what we should charge, but we want to get this into everyone's hands. He clicked the slide, the $999 shattered, and the real price appeared. $499. The crowd went wild with applause.
He made them feel like they were getting a $500 gift from him personally.
Even though $500 for a tablet was still a lot of money back then, he anchored them high, so the real price felt like a steal.
And we are so easily manipulated by this stuff. We covered the effect heuristic briefly earlier, but it fits perfectly here too. The red beans example.
Oh, right, the bowl study. It's a great one.
You give people a choice. They can draw one bean from a small bowl that has one winning red bean and 9 losing white beans.
A 10% chance of winning.
Or they can draw from a big bowl that has 7 winning red beans, but also 93 losing white beans.
A 7% chance of winning, lower odds.
And people consistently choose the big bowl.
They choose the worse odds. Why? Because the feeling, the affect of seeing that bigger pile of 7 red beans is more powerful than the cold logic of the ratio. They just see more winners and their gut says, go for that one.
We really are not rational creatures. We are emotional creatures that rationalize.
That's the core lesson of the whole book.
Okay, we are in the home stretch here. Section 7, epilogue concepts. 2 final, powerful ways we get reality completely wrong. First, the fundamental attribution error. This is the one that ruins traffic and family gatherings for everyone.
This is all about how we judge character versus situation. It's a simple two-sided coin. When I do something bad, say I cut you off in traffic, I attribute it to the situation, the sun was in my eyes, I'm late for a critical doctor's appointment, my kid is sick in the back seat, I am still a good person, I was just forced into a bad action by circumstance.
Or when you cut me off in traffic.
When you do it, I attribute it to your character. You are a selfish maniac. You are an irresponsible jerk. You are a fundamentally bad driver and a bad person. I don't for a second pause to think, oh, maybe the sun was in his eyes too.
We judge ourselves by our good intentions, and we judge everyone else by their bad actions.
And it creates so much unnecessary conflict and anger in the world. If we could just learn to flip that script, to judge ourselves by our actions and give others the benefit of the doubt about their situation, we'd all be much happier.
It requires active, conscious effort, though. The default is to assume the other guy's a jerk.
It's the brain's lazy default. You have to force your brain to say, okay, wait, maybe that person isn't a villain. Maybe they're just having the worst day of their life.
And finally, the normalcy bias. This one isn't funny. This one is genuinely dangerous.
Normalcy bias is what really happens during a disaster. We have this myth from movies that when a fire alarm goes off or a plane is crashing, people panic. They scream, they shove, they stampede. The data shows the exact opposite is true.
People freeze.
People freeze. The brain's immediate reaction to a new, terrifying piece of data is to try and interpret it as an old, safe piece of data. It tries to force reality back into a normal box. That loud bang wasn't a bomb, it was just a car backfiring.
That smoke coming from the kitchen is just someone burning toast.
In analyses of the 9/11 attacks, survivors from the towers reported seeing people lingering at their desks after the planes hit. They were turning off their computers, putting on their coats, talking about meetings they were now late for. Their brains were screaming, everything is normal, just do the normal office routine. Because accepting the terrifying reality that the building is collapsing is too traumatic to process instantly.
So if you are in a situation that feels wrong, like a real emergency, you shouldn't trust your gut.
No. In this one case, do not trust your gut. Your gut wants to normalize the situation to protect you from fear. You have to trust the external signal. If the fire alarm rings, you get out. Don't look around to see if other people are leaving. That's the bystander effect kicking in. Don't tell yourself it's probably just a drill. That's normalcy bias. Assume it's the worst case scenario and move.
Okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. Let's try to sum this up. We are confabulating storytellers. We are puppets being primed by briefcases and smells. We paint bullseyes around random coincidences. We are terrified of Barry Manilow t-shirts. We procrastinate because we hate our future selves. And we will literally stay in a burning building because we don't want to overreact and be embarrassed.
That is a very bleak, but very accurate summary.
It sounds incredibly depressing. Does McRaney leave us with any hope at all, or should we just give up on trying to be rational?
No, no, not at all. He argues that this biased, irrational, stumbling mess of a mind is actually a marvel of evolution. These shortcuts, these heuristics, they evolved because they work 90% of the time in the environments we evolved in. They keep us alive. They help us make quick decisions. They keep us social. They keep us sane.
So if you had to consciously calculate every single variable, every muscle movement, every social interaction, every potential risk, you would never get out of bed. You'd be paralyzed by data.
Exactly. So the delusion is a feature, not a bug. It's a survival mechanism. But the problem arises when we apply these Stone Age survival mechanisms to modern complex problems like the stock market or international politics or analyzing scientific data. Our gut is not equipped for that world.
So what is the solution? What can we do?
Humility. The first step is admitting the problem. You cannot turn off these biases. They are baked into your hardware. You will always have the availability heuristic. You will always feel the spotlight effect, but you can be aware of them.
You can catch yourself in the act.
You can catch yourself. You can build in a mental pause and say, wait a minute. Do I really think crime is up, or did I just watch the local news for an hour? Wait, am I buying this TV because it's a genuinely good deal, or because the salesman anchored me with a much higher price first?
You can't trust your brain on autopilot. You need to constantly check your instruments.
You need to use external tools, you need science, you need statistics, you need data, and maybe most importantly, you need friends and colleagues who are willing to disagree with you and tell you when you are wrong. You need to constantly verify your internal story against the external world.
I want to leave the listener with one final thought from the book that really stuck with me. The argument from ignorance.
This is one of my favorites. It's a logical fallacy where we assume that if we can't explain something, our preferred weird explanation must be the correct one.
The classic is, I saw a strange light in the sky. I don't know what it was. Therefore, it must have been aliens.
But the logic doesn't hold. The statement, I don't know what it was, means exactly that, and only that. You don't know. It doesn't mean it's a ghost. It doesn't mean it's a government conspiracy. It just means you are currently ignorant of the cause.
We are so afraid of that phrase. I don't know.
What I don't know is the most scientific, the most rational, and the most honest thing you can say. It is the beginning of all discovery. If you immediately fill that gap of ignorance with a made-up story, you stop looking for the real truth.
So the final message is, you are not so smart.
But neither is anyone else.
And the smartest thing you can possibly do is admit it. This has been a serious reality check for my ego, but I think I needed it. Thanks for guiding us through the maze of the mind.
It was a pleasure. Keep flipping those brown cards.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.